which means we get some breathing room. Woo woo. And so kindergarten through fifth grade. And if you're a first-time guest with us, or if your child's never been and you're curious about that, it is Bible study. They usually get a snack, have a great time. We just ask that you check them in the first time, and then next week there's a little iPad in the little kids foyer. You can type in your name, and it will print off a tag. But we do ask that you take them the first time. That way they know who your kid is, and we can give them back to you. So, hey, we've got an amazing Sunday planned. At the end of the last song, we're going to do a baptism, and they're going to bring the kids back in, and they're just going to crowd right up here on the floor and watch the baptism, and so that'll take part at the end. We started this series, Never Enough, finding contentment in this world, and that's kind of a hard thing to do. I mean, it seems, maybe for me, maybe not for you, but it seems like there's really just is never enough. And it can be really anything for me. It can be money, it can be ability, it can be time, it can be chairs in the sanctuary. Like, there's really never enough. And what's happened over and over in my life, and prayerfully what's happened over and over in your life, is when we give it to God, it seems that He takes what little we do have and He uses it for something much more. I was thinking about that this week, just when I feel like I'm not enough. I was born and raised like every single person that's ever been born, and broken home. Like I wasn't very educated because I didn't pay much attention in school. I just wasn't a good student, and so they kicked me out in 10th grade, said never come back, and which was fine with me because I thought that would be kind of a cool dig. Like, who wants to go back to school anyways? Like, you showed me. And God had gotten a hold of me early in life, but I ran from Him, and He was calling me to go to Bible school in my 24 years old. And you can imagine at 24, when all you have is a 9th grade education, the idea of going to college. And so I started figuring out what to do, and they said, well, you're too old. You don't even have to take the ACT. You just apply. And I'm like, well, that's good. Like, this is all working out for my benefit. And I got my first paper. It was 10 pages long, and I'd never wrote anything longer than a love note to a girl in class. And so I knew I was in a lot of trouble, and so I wrote it just like I talk. And as you guys listen to me, you'll realize, man, he kind of talks just like he's just sitting in a conversation. That's great. It doesn't work for papers, though. And so they gave me my paper back, and I said, well, what do you want me to do with this? And she said in the notes, this is not a paper. And sarcastically, I responded back, I take it you mean because it's in an email, it's not paper. And she said, no, I mean, there's nothing about this that resembles a paper that would be accepted at this level. And I thought, oh, shucks, I'm in a lot of trouble. And so I pulled together resources and passed English 1 and 2 with a high D, which was enough to survive in school. But halfway through my undergrad, I was like, man, God's calling me not just to go to school, but He's calling me to go and serve Him at a local church. And I was volunteering in youth. And so I started sending out applications. And nowadays, it sounds like I'm a lot older than I really am. But then, like, it wasn't like you just Facebooked and, like, Google mapped everything. Like, you just kind of showed up. And so we applied at this church called Calvary Baptist in Republic, Missouri. I knew nothing about the church. It just sounded like a pretty good gig. It was part-time. It paid. It had all the things I was looking for. And I was like, this is great. I'll go down here. And so we left Kansas City to go down to Republic, which is outside Springfield, to Calvary Baptist. And I remember riding in the car, or I was probably driving, and my wife was with me. And we get to where this address is. And as we get there, what we pull up on is a church that now was in a grocery store. They had taken it over. They ran almost 1,000 people. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And so we kept driving. We drove to Casey's, the next town over. I put my suit on. I went back for the interview, and I was like, this will be great practice. You need practice in life. I was like, well, this will be cool. We'll get to see how this mega church in my mind does it. But there is absolutely no way that this goes anywhere. But it'll be great. Like, we're going to have fun. And we go to the interview, and, they love me like everybody usually does. And I don't know why you laughed at that, because it wasn't even a joke. And that hurts a little. And I go and I do this interview, and everything really does go well, and we leave there, and I just really thought, like, this was great. I tell my friend, like, it's going to go nowhere, but it was an amazing opportunity. They showed me the youth room. It was called The Hangar. It was bigger than this whole, they had like 10,000 square foot. I felt like a just youth space. They had rooms for like every age of children. Like, I was like, this is amazing. They had a coffee shop, and I left there thinking nothing much of it, and sure enough, I got a call saying, hey, we want to move move forward with you. Are you interested? And I really thought they probably got the wrong number. This is one of my friends pulling a joke on me. And sure enough, that's where God had called us to. And we went and served there at this church. And no high school education, half of a college education. And I walked in and I went from no desk to volunteering until I had my own office. And I had a part-time youth, like assistant youth pastor. And I had a youth secretary, and I was like, what in the world do I do with all these people? And we just sat and we talked. And I remember the first day I was sitting there, the desk for some reason had like a little edge, and it would grab my shirt and like pull on it a little bit. And I just did that like 5 times. And I was sitting there and I was wondering, God, what in the world are you doing to me? Like, this is not, I can't do this. Like, these people are like refined people. I'm sure not 2 of them got a felony, God. Like, this isn't for me. Like, I got my tattoo and I got my background, and I'm like, God, what in the world are you doing with me? And he said, Travis, I didn't call you here because you were enough. I called you here because I'm enough. You guys ever feel like that? Like you're just in your situation and you're like, man, I'm not enough. You know what I've seen time and time again is that God is enough when we're not. We're gonna talk about a story, and it's John chapter 6, and it's this boy who's got this measly lunch, but he gives it to the Lord, and we're gonna see what he does with it. But what I love about the story is more than just a story. It's really that this story is a picture of the gospel of Jesus. Like you know, Jesus comes to us, and we've got absolutely nothing to offer him, and he says, hey, you're not enough, but my son Jesus is enough for you. And if you'll trust him, he's already stood in your place, but he's paid your price. But if you'll trust him, he'll apply that blood to your sin. Can you imagine if it was, hey, come when you get it all figured out. Come when you are enough. Come to church when you've got some things put together. But Jesus says, no, you come right where you are, and I'll meet you right there. It's a beautiful story, and so this story starts in John chapter 6, verse 1, but what I want you to know is God doesn't need your abundance. All he needs is your obedience. And so John chapter 6, and I flip-flop some of the notes on the thing for you, but you just follow along. It starts like this. He says, after this, Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. A huge crowd was following him because they saw the signs he was performing by healing the sick. Jesus went up the mountain, and he sat down with his disciples. Now the Passover, a Jewish festival, was near. So when Jesus looked up, he noticed a huge crowd coming towards him. He asked Philip, one of the guys with him, where will we buy bread so that these people can eat? This crowd has been following Jesus literally all day. And I'm sure if we could survey the people, there's a lot of different reasons they come. I mean, some were probably just curious. Like, hey, this Jesus guy making ripples all throughout the countryside. Like, well, who is he? What is he about? Some probably came because they were desperate. You can imagine if you heard about this Jesus guy that could touch the blind and they could see, or he could speak and the dead would come back alive, or the lame would walk again. Like that's somebody, if I had something going on in life or someone I love, I'd be like, man, I need to get close to that Jesus guy. And so some probably were there just because they were desperate for an answer. Some of them were probably committed believers already, and they said, man, we're going to follow Jesus wherever he goes. Others were probably there and they were skeptics. This Jesus guy. Who does he think he is? He thinks he can heal the blind and tell the lame to walk again. This Jesus guy really is nobody. But you want to know what they all have in common at some point? They all get hungry. That's the funniest thing. At some point, no matter why you're here, at some point you get hungry. And Jesus has all these people, and you can imagine as they're sitting there and that sun's beating down on them, and they come to the place where they're like, man, we're hungry. And just like with us, like you start to get uneasy, and there's some shuffling. And so Jesus looks up from his teaching, and he sees them, and he says, man, these guys are hungry. How are we going to feed them? Now, I think Philip answers the question. He says, what do you mean? How are we going to feed them? And there's this boy that's in this story. He's a young boy. He's not got much to offer, but he does offer it. And Jesus is going to do something amazing with it. But you know what that boy has to be willing to do? He has to be willing to give something up to the Lord. He has to be willing to let go of really his sack lunch that he's got for the day. That's called a sacrifice. When you give something up, you're sacrificing. It doesn't matter if it's your time. It doesn't matter if it's your money. It doesn't matter if it's your ability. When you give something up for someone else, you're making a sacrifice. And that pushes back against our natural instinct. That's probably your second point. That's now your first point. But Jesus looks up and, just flow with it. And he looks up and he notices this huge crowd coming towards him. He says, Philip, where will we buy bread? He asked them this to test them, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread wouldn't be enough for each of them to have a little. Philip's got a pretty logical answer. I mean, Jesus, really, if we had 200 denarii, it wouldn't even feed half of them. We'd need a half a year's wage just for everyone to take one bite. Like Jesus, I don't know if you understand, but logically and financially, we cannot feed these people who are here. Okay. You know what that's called? That's called a calculation. We do that. It's just ingrained in our human instinct. As soon as something comes up, mentally we start to calculate, how in the world could this work? You want to borrow $100 from me? I'm instantly going to calculate, can I even make that work? When Jesus wants something more from me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to calculate, does Travis have the bandwidth to give this up? But that's not faith. It's a human calculation. It's part of who we are, but it's not faith, because human nature is going to tell us to hold on to it, protect it. But Jesus is going to say, sacrifice it, give it away, and see what I can do with it. You think about, if you would flip all the way back, you don't have to, but 1 Kings chapter 17, there's a widow, and she's in this drought, and I've never lived through a drought, but I could imagine if I had to live off the land. I mean, heck, when toilet paper ran out, I was getting nervous, let alone if drought and food was taking place, and she's out of everything. And Elijah the prophet shows up, and because God's told him, hey, you go here. And he shows up, and you know what he has the audacity to ask this lady for? Feed me some food. Now, this lady has a little boy, and she's at the very end of what she has left. Elijah, a prophet of God, feed me some food. Human calculation, Elijah, I'm sorry, but I love my son more than I love you. And I can't feed you that because I've got to feed him what little bit I have left. That's a human calculation. Faith, she fixes Elijah what he asked for. God, because of her obedience and faith, it says that he continued to fill up her jars. That she didn't run out. That she had more than she started with. She gave not because it made sense. There is no way at all it made sense. Every mother in this room, if we were to ask you right now, like, would you give your last piece of bread away because a prophet of God showed up? You in your human mind would say, that makes zero sense. I need to feed my kid that last bit I have. So she didn't do it because it made sense. She did it because she believed in something much bigger than what was going on in her current situation. And God came through. That's what spiritual sacrifice looks like. To give when it doesn't make sense. To give out of obedience, not out of abundance. We're going to have, and this will be a pretty cool time in the life of our church. After Easter, we're going to have a family meeting right here in this sanctuary. And we're going to ask you guys who are church members to vote on increasing a budget to bring on Braden full-time and to eventually pay Aaron more when we go to 3 services. Now, we sit down in elders meeting Tuesday, days ago, and we talked about this. And we thought, well, you know, God's been very good to us. We can probably afford it. Like, financially, it does look... But you know what we started to ask ourselves? Hey, what if during the summertime everything kind of goes down? Like, what if the economy takes a turn? Like, what if, like, all these what ifs started to take place, and we started to make some calculations to say, I'm not sure, and Frank, and he's not here, so I can say anything about him that I want to. Frank goes, well, boys, and Frank, sometimes I think he says, well, boys, is like I'm drawing into a major point, and so we all listen, we're like, what? Like, well, boys, what it comes down to is we're going to step out on faith and trust God, or are we going to get scared and we're not going to do it? And so he said, let's do it. And so you guys will be presented with an increase in budget to say, hey, would you guys like to bring on Braden full time? And let me tell you, it doesn't necessarily make all the sense in the world, because anytime you're saying, hey, we're going to spend more, it just gets a little scary. But I want to tell you a story. You know, we had this same conversation in elders, not even a year ago. Whenever it was presented, did we want to become our own church? And we're like, yeah, let's do it. And my family, we had just moved here back in January of 23. And this is like 6 months later. And we're looking at the budget, and this is what we were bringing in. Less than $3,600 a week. We weren't even bringing in our budget yet. And we're sitting there, this group of men, and we're like, this does not make much sense. But we knew in our heart, God, this is what you were calling us to do. You called us to Fulton to plant a church, and we're going to move forward no matter what. You know, not even a year later, we've almost doubled what we have in a week. God's been so good to us. He blesses obedience, not abundance. But that's our natural instinct. Shrink in, hang on, whenever things come up. And that's mainly because that's the culture we live in. It is just what society says. There is never enough to go around. And if you've got enough today, you better think about tomorrow. But in God's kingdom, guys, there's always more than enough to go around. Here's your next point. God uses what you're willing to offer, not what you wish you had. John 6, 8, and 9 says, one of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, there's a boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what are they for so many? You know, the boy does not have, really much at all. It's not the good bread. It's not the good fish. Like, it's either pickled fish or it's dried or something. Like, it is a can of sardines and 2 crackers. Like, it is what we would call like a sack lunch. Like, it's a peanut butter sandwich and maybe a banana. Like, that may even be too much to compare to this. Like, it's a $20 bill and a $2 million debt. Like, it is nothing. Like, I'm telling you, it is so little that really, when you read the story, it's laughable. Like you want to give what? Like, you think with this little bit we can do anything with it? But God doesn't need the abundance. All he needed was the obedience. You think about that. David, what did he have? He didn't even have a sword. He had 5 smooth stones, and he led a nation to victory with it because of God. You think about Moses. Moses couldn't speak right. Moses wasn't a whole lot, but he had a stutter and a shepherd's staff. And God used his obedience in an amazing way. Think about the widow in Luke 21 who really, she had even less than what we're talking about here, and just the 2 coins to her name, and she gives them, and Jesus says she gave more than everyone else in the room. Why? Because it was from her obedience, not from her abundance that she gave. I want you guys to know God doesn't bless imaginary gifts. He blesses real life obedience. None of them had more. They just gave from what they had, and God multiplied it. Some of us want to wait till the perfect conditions. Some of us want to wait till, man, if I just had this, if I just had more time, if I just had more money, man, if I just had more knowledge, if I just had all this, I would do more for God. I've sat with people many times, and they said, man, if I just won this lottery, man, I'd give so much to the church. Man, I'd give 30% of it to the church. Oh, really? Well, what do you give now? Well, I don't give nothing now, but I'm telling you, if I won that lottery, I would give so much more. Well, yeah, more. Anything plus 0 is more. And if I just had more time and more of this and more knowledge, I would just serve God. I just want you to know, God just wants your obedience, not your abundance. He just wants you to give from what you have, not from what you wish you had. Putting others first isn't about ignoring your needs. It's about including others. When you sacrifice, that's what you're doing. You're putting others before yourself. Philippians says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourself. Everyone should look not to his own interest, but rather the interests of others. You know, this boy really had every reason to keep his own lunch. I mean, he's a child, for one. A bunch of adults taking a child's lunch. This almost sounds like a bad story starting. And he could have even said, that's mine. Like, I packed it. I went and got the fish. Like, this is my lunch. Like, he could have even said, why would I sacrifice this when it's going to do absolutely nothing for the crowd that's here? Like, not only are they not going to be full, I'm not even going to be full. But Jesus called us to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so he gives it away. And it is so contrary to what our flesh wants to say. Our flesh wants to say that all you can worry about yourself. And let me tell you, self-care is biblical. Like I'm a huge proponent for taking care of yourself. It drives me crazy when people don't set aside time for themselves. But self-care is not the only thing we can worry about. We've got to open up that circle to say, man, I care enough about others to sacrifice what I have to give away. You think about a firefighter running into a burning building. My gut reaction is, man, that person is reckless. Do they even care about their life? Well, they do. They've taken a calculated risk, and they said, there's something bigger than myself that I'm willing to take a risk to go and help them. That's what it looks like when we give things away as Christians. We're saying, I'm not reckless. I don't want to be foolish with what I have, but there's more to me in this world, and I want what little I do have to give it away and let God use it. So God doesn't want you to neglect your needs. He just wants you to ask yourself, is your story just about you? Or does your story include other people? The last point, I think it's the last point, it is your sacrifice might be the miracle someone else is waiting for. John 6 continues on in verse 11. It says, Jesus took the loaves, and after giving thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also with the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were full, he told the disciples, collect the leftovers so that nothing is wasted. So they collected them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces from 5 barley loaves that were left over by those who had eaten. Jesus takes the loaves and he takes the fish, and it's distributed to all these people. And it goes around, and not everybody just gets a bite. They eat until they're full. And when it's done, he collected them and he filled 12 baskets with what was left. That is not human logic at work. That's a God of miracles doing something amazing with some little boy's faithful obedience to say, God, it's not much, but you take it and do with it what you can. And God takes his obedience and he feeds them all, and there's more left over. You know, that boy wasn't the hero. Like that boy, we don't even have his name. Like he gives up his lunch and we don't even get his name. Because this story is about a God who provides in obedience. You guys have no idea what God could do with your small yes. I've been thinking about this all week. This church exists. I mean, you guys have helped support it to where it's at now. But do you know when this church started? There was not $1 from Callaway County or Fulton, Missouri. It was started with a vision of a church in Sedalia, Missouri, with people who don't even live here, said, man, we see something bigger than us, and we want to start a church plant in Fulton. And I can tell you, I sat in the meetings. It was a financial burden at times. They looked at me in a meeting and they said, hey, we'll pay your salary if the church can't make it. And I'm like, are you sure? And they're like, yes. Well, our church will take on the burden. If you all don't make it, we're going to take care of you. Not because it was about them, but because they wanted their yes to do something more. Can you imagine what God could do with your yes? Because look what he's done with somebody's yes from Sedalia, Missouri. God is doing something amazing here. And it's not because something we've done. It's not because of something Sedalia's done. It's because of the God we serve. We've gotten to celebrate baptisms. We've got to see people go from death to life. We've got to see people who have walked in addiction, no longer walk in addiction. I counted it last week, and there was over like 7 people who had freshly been out of prison in the last 5 years of their life, who was here worshiping, and they said, this feels like home. This is my place. I don't know why that is, other than that's who God is. We get to celebrate today a baptism of a 6-year-old boy. These are stories God is writing because of a faithful obedience, yes. Not because of abundance. We wish we had abundance. We tell ourselves in meetings, man, what if we just had $1.5 million, man? We'd buy it and we'd build it and it'd be so big. And God says, I don't want to bless your abundance. I just want to bless your obedience. Will you still be obedient to me whenever it seems like there's nowhere to put people? Will you still be obedient to me whenever the rooms are overfilling and the kids' ministry don't know what they're doing? Will you still be obedient whenever I'm calling you to walk in faithfulness? And we want to continue to say yes. So what if the lunch you're holding on to is the answer to someone else's miracle? You know how many people have told me it is such a blessing that Life Point Church came to Fulton, Missouri when it did? Hundreds. Every person really that I talked to, they said, man, we were looking for something like this. Imagine if Sedalia would have said, that's our lunch. We don't want to give it up. That's what happens when you hang on to your lunch. Your lunch is the answer to someone else's miracle. And so we've got to let go of it. And so here's the question. What is in your hands? And maybe it's not much. Maybe what you bring to the table in the grand scheme of things is very little. Well, thank God that little boy didn't count what he had as too little to bring. And Baker's not in here, is he? Oh, he is in it. Baker, and this kid, if you guys haven't met Baker, Baker is an amazing little boy. Baker has invited people to be here. Like, he is so stoked about what God's doing in his heart. What he brings is pretty small in the grand scheme of things. But man, it's a lot in the hands of God. I don't know how many people, we're partly out of seats, Baker, because you invited too many people. Which is amazing. But what could God do with your yes? I'll invite the praise team up here. We're going to have a song of an invitation, and the altar will be open. I'll be down here if you want to talk, or if you want prayer, if you just want to come and pray by yourself and just talk to the Lord. But the question just is, what is in your hands that you need to let go of? And none of this really matters if you've never trusted Jesus as your Lord and Savior. If you've never taken that step of crying out, God, that I know that I'm a sinner, and I know there is nothing I can do, but I want to trust you as my Lord and Savior. That's where it all starts. You put that yes on the table, and then every step of the way continue to put your yes on the table. So let's be people who offer to God what we do have. Let's be people who trust God over fear. Let's be people who include others when we make decisions throughout our lives. Let's pray.